The Earth did not crack open for a second and close again. It opened in Indonesia in 2006 and never really stopped. On May 29, 2006, hot mud and gas began erupting from the ground near Sidoarjo in East Java. What started near a gas exploration site turned into Lusi, a mud volcano so large and so relentless that it kept erupting for years, swallowing land long after the first shock should have ended. This was not the kind of disaster people expect. It did not arrive in one violent minute and leave behind a ruin. It stayed, it spread, it kept rising from below. That is what makes Lusi feel wrong at the deepest level. Most disasters behave like an attack. An earthquake strikes, a wave hits, a mountain collapses. But Lusi behaves more like a wound that refuses to close. It does not rush in all at once. It swallows space slowly. It keeps coming back the next day and the next and the next until people stop asking when it will end and start asking what can still be saved. From above, the place looks almost unreal. A grey-brown basin of mud, steam and gas lifting into the air, circular embankments trying to contain something that does not want to be contained. Roads cut off, factories drowned, neighborhoods ending at the edge of a sludge field that looks less like land and more like the surface of something still digesting what it buried. It is one of those landscapes that barely looks natural anymore. Not because it became artificial, but because it became something in between part geology, part ruin, part ongoing burial. And that is the first real shock of Lusi. It did not destroy a landscape that was already empty. It moved into ordinary life. Homes, roads, mosques, schools, rice fields, factories, payroll, routines, family life. All of it was forced to give way to hot mud that kept advancing. Entire villages were displaced. Communities were broken apart. People did not just lose structures, they lost geography. Streets disappeared. Boundaries disappeared. Familiar places were flattened into one spreading surface of grey heat and wet earth. What makes that horror even more intimate is the pace. Fire feels immediate. A landslide feels violent. Lusi feels patient. That patience is what makes it so cruel. It did not need one giant cinematic moment to become monstrous. It only needed to keep rising. Day after day, week after week, year after year. A fast disaster can take your life in seconds. A slow one can take your map, your neighborhood, your job, your memory of home, and then force you to watch the disappearance continue. Once a disaster becomes continuous, something stranger happens. People are no longer just surviving impact. They are living beside ongoing burial. The embankments built around Lusi became part of the visual identity of the disaster itself, rings of human resistance around something hot, geologic and stubbornly alive. The mudfield does not look like a finished ruin. It looks like containment around a force still pressing upward from below. That is why Lusi carries a different kind of fear from the other places in this series. It is not one impossible second. It is repetition. The land did not die in a single scream. It drowned slowly in mud. And there is something especially disturbing about that. A mountain collapse at least announces itself. A tsunami gives you a surge of motion. Lusi is quieter, heavier, more humiliating in the way it destroys. It buries by persistence. It takes away the shape of a place. It turns solid ground into something soft, unstable and final. The earth itself begins to feel unreliable, not cracked, not shattered, just unable to stay land. Visually, it may be one of the strangest disaster landscapes on Earth. Not black lava, not glowing ash, just grey heat, steam, wet earth, and a flat spreading surface that looks too calm for the damage it caused. From above, it can almost look industrial or abstract. But once you know the story, the geometry changes. The levees look fragile, the vents look hungry, the surface looks less like mud and more like slow erasure. The whole scene starts to feel like the ground itself forgot how to stay solid. And maybe that is the darkest part. Lusi did not open in some unreachable corner of the planet. It opened in one of the most human kinds of places. A worked landscape, a built landscape, a place already full of roads, houses, factories, and ordinary plans for tomorrow. That is why the story lingers. It turns the ground beneath ordinary life into something unstable and almost biological. Not because it moved like a monster in a film, but because it kept rising from below and refused to stop. Even now, that ongoingness is part of what makes Lusi so hard to shake. This is not only a historical disaster, it became a catastrophe with duration. The mud kept coming, the steam kept rising, the buried villages stayed buried. The place remained what it had become, not just the site of a disaster, but a disaster that would not end when people wanted it to. So when you hear the name Lusi Volcano, do not picture a small bubbling pool. Picture the earth pushing hot mud upward for years. Picture entire villages disappearing under a grey surface thick enough to erase roads, factories, homes, and memory. Picture a disaster that does not explode outward, but swallows space from below. Because this was not just a mud volcano, it was the ground turning against the people who trusted it. And if Lusi was a place where the earth drowned the land in mud, Mammoth Mountain is a place where the ground itself has become toxic. In California, it looks like a beautiful ski mountain. But beneath the snow and trees, invisible volcanic gas seeps upward, killing the forest and turning the air into something that can suffocate without warning. In the next video, we go there, to a mountain that looks calm, cold, and harmless, while the danger stays completely unseen.